After 3 months since its official debut in China, the Xiaomi 12 and the Xiaomi 12 Pro is finally available in other countries, including here in Malaysia. These two are Xiaomi's latest flagship smartphones, and I've spent the past 2 weeks or so with these two phones. And instead of doing a one-on-one review on each of these phones, I'm just gonna combine the review and comparing both of them at the same time. I think these two phones have a lot of similarities in them, and I also have a lot of comments on these two phones, but they are very common between each other. So let's begin with the review. For this review and comparison, we will still be using our usual 6 points when it comes to a smartphone, and we'll start off by talking about the design of these two phones. I don't know how to say this, but I'll just be blunt with my words here. These two phones look like they have some sort of sandstone finish, just like the OnePlus One, but it is very smooth to the touch. It feels absolutely fantastic to touch and hold, and I just really like to caress the phone, especially the Xiaomi 12 right here. The curvatures are also fantastic, which makes this phone just... I don't want to let it go. And as you can see here, these two phones are quite tiny in today's standard for a flagship smartphone. And the Xiaomi 12 comes with a tiny 6.28-inch AMOLED screen with a resolution of 2400 by 1080 with a maximum refresh rate of 120Hz. The Xiaomi 12 Pro, on the other hand, comes with a larger size. Hence, it has a larger screen of 6.73-inch with a AMOLED screen and also a higher resolution of 3200 by 1440, but with the same maximum refresh rate of 120Hz. The Xiaomi 12 Pro's larger display doesn't feel like it's a lot wider because, as you can see here, this is actually quite a tall phone. So the bigger display is mostly due to the height. Now, Xiaomi claims that these two phones are certified A+ by DisplayMate. I have no idea how DisplayMate do their measurements, so I just took out our colorimeter and tested out the displays on these two phones to find out that they are actually quite identical to each other. The white point, as in the output of each individual RG and B values, is kind of jumpy, but nonetheless, these two phones do go up to about 500 nits of average brightness at maximum. And in terms of its color accuracy, we tuned everything to 100 nits of brightness, and we found out that they both cover at nearly 100% of sRGB color gamut and about 95% of DCI-P3. I'd say in overall, these two displays are actually good, but they are not the best in the market right now. One more thing that I want to highlight is that I have a bad habit of stacking two phones in my pocket like this when I'm out and about trying to take pictures to do it in a review, something like that. And I realized that the pre-installed screen protector here, they are film screen protectors, they get scratched real easily even though I stack it like this, which doesn't happen to other phones that I stack like this. So I'm not sure what happened, but I'm gonna peel it off anyway. And one more thing that I want to highlight is the fingerprint scanner position that is very inconsistent between these two phones. So the Xiaomi 12 Pro, as you can see here, the under display fingerprint scanner is somewhere higher compared to the bottom of the phone, so it's easier to reach with my thumb. And as for the Xiaomi 12, for some reason they decided to put it way at the bottom of the phone, which makes it very difficult to reach, and each time I want to do it, I have to literally shift the whole phone upwards. So yeah, you might drop the phone while trying to do that. As for the performance of these two phones, they both come with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and honestly speaking, this new chipset is less hot compared to the Snapdragon 888, but it is still hot nonetheless. We did a dedicated gaming test of each of these two phones here, and I want to reiterate some of the highlights once again. The Xiaomi 12 is tiny, hence it has less mass and also less surface area to dissipate heat, which is why it reached the same reported temperature of 48 degrees Celsius, but it only manages to push out an average frame rate of about 35 FPS while playing Genshin Impact at the highest graphical settings at 60 FPS. For the Xiaomi 12 Pro, it is heavier, hence it has more thermal mass, and it is also larger with a larger surface area to dissipate heat, which is why we get the same reported temperature of 48 degrees Celsius, but it manages to push out about 45 FPS while playing Genshin Impact at the highest graphical setting at 60 FPS mode, just like the Xiaomi 12. That is an extra 10 FPS on top of the smaller Xiaomi 12 just because it can kick out heat faster. The surface temperature on both of these phones isn't exactly that much different, but they definitely did roast my finger when I tried to grab the phone after leaving it on Genshin Impact for like about 5 minutes on the table, so keep that in mind. How about the battery life then? Well, here is where things get a little bit interesting. So I calibrated both of these phones at 1080p resolution, 120Hz refresh rate, and at 100 nits of brightness before I did the PC Mark 10 battery life test. And then, to my surprise, the smaller Xiaomi 12 with the slightly smaller battery manages to outlast the Xiaomi 12 Pro. I don't know why this happened, but I can predict that it's because the system-wide power and thermal limit of the Xiaomi 12 is lower, hence that is why it's able to last longer than the Xiaomi 12 Pro. Now let's talk about the charging time then. Starting with the Xiaomi 12, this phone is fairly standard. It comes with a 67-watt charger and it can charge from 15 to 100% in about 45 minutes, and that's actually quite good for what it has to offer. Now, as for the Xiaomi 12 Pro, we did too many charging tests for this phone actually. Honestly, you have to look at the 120-watt charger with a grain of salt because this phone comes with a single cell battery. And in my mind, that means the Xiaomi 12 Pro's charging speed won't be as fast as any other 120-watt smartphones with a dual cell battery like the Black Shark 4 Pro. The first test that I did was by default. I left everything just out of the box with factory settings and tried the charging test, and the result was very disappointing because it took 30 minutes to charge from 15 to 100%, and that is just very slow for a 120-watt charger. And then I dug around, and inside the settings menu, there is an option to enable the alleged true 120 watts via the settings menu. So I just enabled that, and then I did the same test again, but this time with the watt meter recording. As you can see here, it manages to only pull in 110 watts maximum, and this 110 watts duration is actually not that long. It only lasts for about few minutes, and then it dropped back down to about 60-70 watts most of the time. And when we did enable the true 120 watts charging option, the phone did heat up quite a bit, but it's not burning hot like when we are trying to play games or something like that. And it still took nearly at about 30 minutes to charge from 15 to 100%. As a comparison, the Black Shark 4 Pro with the dual cell battery and 120 watt charger, our watt meter reported a sustained 120 watts power draw for a longer period of time, and the Black Shark 4 Pro charged from 15 to 100% in only about 15 minutes. And to further elaborate on that, the Black Shark 4 Pro also have a larger battery capacity compared to the Xiaomi 12 and the Xiaomi 12 Pro. Anyway, do let us know down below in the comment section if you want us to explore the topic of fast charging misconceptions and why it is oftentimes misleading. Anyway, back to these two phones at hand. The software. They both come equipped with Android 12 with MIUI 13 pre-installed, and I've already talked about MIUI 13 before. It's mostly just MIUI 12.5 but with a few new additional animations and whatnot. And all the bugs and all the supremely messy settings menu, the annoying timer when trying to enable some settings, they're all still present on MIUI 13 on these two phones. So if you want to learn more, check out our previous reviews at the top right corner there to know exactly what we're talking about. And for this time around, Xiaomi also promised a total of 3 generations of Android version upgrades with 4 years of security patches for the Xiaomi 12 series, which I think is good, and it goes to show that some software commitment is really necessary nowadays to compete in the premium flagship Android market. As for the cameras, these two phones come with a rather different set of cameras. Starting with the Xiaomi 12 right here, we have a total of 3 different cameras, and I was surprised that this phone have a telephoto macro camera, but it doesn't have a dedicated telephoto camera, so we cannot take any dedicated zoom pictures, as in optical zoom. And wow, I gotta say, all of the cameras on the Xiaomi 12 actually do take fantastic pictures. Both indoors, outdoors, day and night shots, they all look real good. And I've also tested video at night at the same time as well while walking around KLCC at that time, and the video also looked good. There is definitely some OIS artifacts at night, but overall, it's impressive. And as for the Xiaomi 12 Pro, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So for this phone, we have a total of 3 different cameras, but each of these cameras are using 50 megapixel sensors, and we also have a dedicated telephoto camera. But we don't have that telephoto macro camera, so we cannot take macro shots using the Xiaomi 12 Pro. But anyway, all of the 50 megapixel sensors are technically my favorite feature of the Xiaomi 12 Pro because honestly speaking, I can take a lot of beautiful high resolution pictures on the Xiaomi 12 Pro. And you can also think of taking 4K 60fps videos on all 3 cameras on this phone. And yeah, it's just really versatile when we have that kind of freedom when it comes to the sensor on a smartphone's camera. Anyway, even on full auto mode, the cameras on the Xiaomi 12 Pro is also very good. And I personally just want to see better dynamic range for indoor shots like this, and some consistent white balance between the main and also telephoto camera. I also did the same video test at night while walking around KLCC, and yeah, it looks more or less the same as the Xiaomi 12 as well. I still have a few more things to quickly go through regarding both the Xiaomi 12 and the Xiaomi 12 Pro. So these two phones, even though they are technically premium flagships from Xiaomi, they are both still using USB 2.0 and the transfer speed is atrociously slow. I hate that it rhymes. And also there's no HDMI output over Type-C on these two phones. And yet these two phones are not cheap. And these two phones also do not have micro SD card slot or 3.5mm audio jack. And just a quick addition, these two phones are also not IP rated. So we're at the end of this comparison and review, and I really need to look at the price before saying anything about these two phones. And here in Malaysia, the prices of these two phones are as shown on the screen right here. I personally think that the Xiaomi 12, the tiny one, is a good choice because at a starting price of 2,999 ringgit, please don't get the 128 gigs version. I would say it's expensive, yes, but it's a good compact phone. And I should also say that this is a phone that I will consider carrying it in my pocket too. As for the Xiaomi 12 Pro, I think this is just way too expensive for what it has to offer. Despite having 50 megapixel camera sensors on each of these cameras at the back, it fell apart in terms of battery life, the reality of the charging speed, USB 2.0, and obviously the price tag. For that price tag, I would just go for the Samsung Galaxy S22 or the Galaxy S22 Plus. That is complete in terms of a flagship premium Android smartphone compared to the Xiaomi 12 Pro. So that's it. That's all we have to share with you between these two phones. This is real cute and I still want to touch it.